Um, so I'm very, very happy that you all joined us today on this very sunny, nice day. And just before I start and go into the content, originally we had someone invited from the company called C3M, Paddy, for personal reasons. He had to bail out yesterday, and I'm super excited and thankful that we found two amazing people from the cloud security field who joined us today, and who jumped in really helping us to discuss the do's and don'ts, the good things and bad things, the ugly ones of cloud security. And before I go into the content, really, let me introduce you first to Yotam Segev. He's the co-founder and CEO of Cyera. Opposite to the infrastructure security, Cyera is coming from the data point of view, which I believe is very, very interesting, a different angle to the story, right? I can read you a little bit of his bio. I'm not doing everything, but Yotam is a cybersecurity expert for the last 15 years, has a lot of experience in offensive cybersecurity and security architecture. And what's very interesting, Yotam is an alumni of the Israeli prestigious, I cannot never pronounce it correctly, Talpiot program, where he also met his co-founder and CTO of Cyera. The interesting part for me, Cyera is a very young company, right? But they already raised 60 million in the first year of operation. And the most amazing thing for me there, the VCs which are backing him, Sequoia, Accel, and Cyberstarts. Obviously, the team has done something really, really well and really, really done correctly. So thanks a lot, Yotam, for joining me. And by the way, congratulations. I think it's really around 60 million. That's impressive. My second partner here is Shai Morog. He's the co-founder and CEO of Hermetic. Hermetic is looking more from the infrastructure side, from the compliance side. So we should have both angles really come to light and giving us the opportunity to really see where it comes from. Shai has also more 20 years of product management, technology leadership, and senior executive experience. He is a multi-entrepreneur. His last company, he sold very successfully to Palo Alto Networks. So therefore, obviously, he knows what he's doing. And believe it or not, Shai was also in the Israeli army, and Shai was also part of the Talpiot program, right? So both of you have a very, very similar background. And before I go into that one and into the cloud topic, I'm really curious to see, how this really works, because we have so many Israeli-based startup companies in the cybersecurity space, which really work out nicely, right? Which make it to A, B, C round and solve a lot of customer problems. Tell us a little bit about this Talpiot program. What is it? What is the background? Why is that such a starting melting pot for so many successful entrepreneurs? Who goes first?
So maybe I will start, and Yotam can follow. So first, thank you for having us. Really honored to be here, and very happy to be here. So maybe to share a little bit about the Talpiot program, and I would say some of the secrets, of the Israeli military. I think one of probably the main reasons why it is so successful, I would say, it's probably because of the mandatory service, I would say, in Israel. Every boy and girl at the age of 18 needs to eventually join the army or join to the military service. So you have all the potential of all Israelis that can join the army. And the army invested a lot of efforts in making sure that they find the right persons, the right team members, the right boys and girls that can join based on a lot of qualities, like let's even start with IQ, I would say, how smart they are, how technical they are, if they have officer qualities, if they can lead, if they can manage. And the secret, I would say the first secret probably of all these programs, it's they choose 30 or 40 or 50 of the best, I would say, of the Israeli talent. Then, of course, you have the training, you have the education, you have everything all the experience that you get through these programs. Talpiot is, of course, one of the elite programs. So eventually you take the best of the best and train them well So you get best talent, you get very good talent. And the experience that we get through the service, especially in cybersecurity, I would say in a follow-on programs, it's something that, of course, helps us create as an industry very good companies. I don't know if
that's very interesting. Yotam, just to jump on this one, right? Because based on what we just heard, I still, when I talk with CISOs, when I talk with business people, I get a lot of, the business pushing to cloud. We have to do it. We have hybrid work models, and all that stuff. And it's just a huge topic, but there is still a huge amount of fear. The people are saying, oh, it's so risky and all that stuff. Given the background, because I guess the Israeli army is one of the most attacked places in the world. What is it really? What is it? And why are the people so afraid? Is it valid, or is this something, it's just a lack of knowledge or a lack of confidence because it's not invented by myself? What's the point from your side there?
I think that in my experience, enterprises, big organizations of different kinds, they have the things that they're familiar with, and they have the things that they're not familiar with. And every time they have to deal with something that the world throws at them that is new, it's always a challenge. It's always something that needs to be digested into the ecosystem and into this existing animal that is the enterprise. I can share my own personal experience from 8200, the Israeli NSA, where I was tasked along with my co-founder with the project of adopting public cloud into use in the agency. And this is a very technological organization. It's very skilled and talented with technology, but still, when you tell an intelligence agency, you're going to leverage infrastructure, you're going to leverage platform, and you're going to leverage services that are provided in the internet, in the cloud, by third parties like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and others, that's a challenging concept for the organization. And in order to make it work, I think there's a lot that needs to be invested from the organization side in process, in tooling, and especially in education, in taking the IT people that for 20 years worked on on-premise environments and getting them up to the cloud. And that's a challenge. The cloud is difficult. It's a nascent technology, even though it's already very big, it's still only coming up. And it takes many years until these technologies are adopted well into the enterprise ecosystem. And the people that actually have to manage them, run them, secure them, feel comfortable that they're familiar with everything that's going on there. And especially in these environments that are the cutting edge of today's technology, and they're changing all the time, they're growing all the time, they're expanding all the time. It's a constant effort for every security organization, for every IT organization, to stay on top of the latest and greatest of the capabilities, and the developers are going to find those capabilities and start leveraging them a whole lot sooner than security feel comfortable with.
Let me challenge you on that one, because is given that you both have a different view, right, from data and infrastructure, has anyone or everyone to see the cloud as an untrusted space? Is it, say, look, it's an untrusted network. You need to start with, it will be breached. It will be, you don't have full control. You need to get your controls and everything is the protection around your data versus, no, there is this compliance. I just can't take it up and say, oh, it's untrusted anyhow. Do whatever you like.
I think that perhaps today some organizations feel that way, but that is a temporary situation and it will change. The cloud will be a safer place for data, for applications, and for enterprise business processes. It will be the only place for these things. I don't believe that organizations are going to continue to manage their data in the data center. And I think that every enterprise that I get to meet in this journey has accepted that cloud is the way to go. They've adopted what they call a cloud-first mentality, where they're building the new stuff in the cloud and gradually moving through a re-architecture or lift and shift the old systems into the cloud. But the cloud is the place that it's all going to happen. There's no reason for companies that IT is not their main focus, it's not their main business value, to spend so much effort on spinning up these services themselves. And I think that that's pretty well understood by all today.
But Shai, from your point of view, where you do compliance checks and everything, is your view more, hey, network is, or the infrastructure is trusted or untrusted, or is it compliance focus more on the data elements which need to be protected?
Okay, so it's a good question. Maybe I will start a little bit back. I would say that, just to add on what Yotam said, I would say that, of course, people fear things that are changing. This is one, of course. Two, things that are out of their control. Usually you had control of everything. And I would say in general, things are, the change that the cloud brought to our, I would say, to our industry, it's something that change in many different places. The way that you develop, the way that you deploy code, the way that you do everything is changing. So of course there is lack of knowledge, lack of expertise. Everything is ephemeral in the cloud, the developers, different stakeholders. So of course you need some time, I would say, to be more expert of that. I want to add on top of that, maybe that just the good thing is most of the cloud providers are really focused on security. I would say for 90-something% of the enterprises, I would say the cloud providers are better in security than the enterprises themselves, that they actually have a different business. Their expertise and is in their business line. So I would say in general, cloud providers bring security, but helps makes the world a more secure place. You just need to learn it. You just need to manage it. You just need to do it correctly, I would say. And
Fully agree.
And per your question, I would say on our responsibility, I would say, so we at Omatic, we take security and compliance, I would say, both perspectives. So of course, we need and try to help our customers be more secure. And security and compliance, I would say compliance is not equal to security, of course.
Exactly.
So we need to help them become more secure and help them become more secure in the cloud, and help them get the most, I would say, of the cloud and getting more secure. And on the same place, also helping them meet all the compliance needs and all the compliance checks. With in some cases, it's not really the same as being more secure. Sometimes you need to meet some checkboxes that are less important to security, or sometimes are very important to security, but you still need to meet them, even if it's not really important to security.
Totally agree. Yeah, one question on that one I had once a couple of months ago in discussion with someone from Microsoft Azure, and he told me, look, 70% of all our security tools are not used by the companies, by the clients we are having. And I was, oh, that's interesting. Why? And the answer was, most of the time the clients are lacking the capability of using our data. So, if you have a cloud access broker, you can do certain identity and access management things. But for example, if you don't have a security operations center or a SIM installation, you can produce all kind of logs in the cloud if you cannot consume it. So it's just a problem, right? So that's one. It was the ability to really consume and use the service, and which was a hindering factor. And the other thing was, he said, we would love to switch on all cloud activities following secure by design, security by default. But again, most of the customers are not ready. The apps are not ready. The infrastructure in the backend is not ready. So we have to drive more or less with the open helmet, just to see, okay, because there's no other way to the period. How is your experience with that one?
So I agree that most of the customers, most of the organizations are not leveraging everything that they can in the cloud, including, of course, security and security capabilities. I would say some of the security tools or the native tools of the platforms, and this is maybe something that I would say in the benefit of the organization, that they are actually tools and are very hard to use. And very complicated to use. And sometimes there are tools for developers and not for, I would say, product owners or security teams. Sometimes they need more I would say, development skills in order to make them. Sometimes they are not enterprise ready in some cases. So I would say in general, I agree with the statement, but I'm not sure it's the organization fault. I would say in some cases, doing everything using native tools, it's very complicated.
Okay. So, but given all what we just said, gentlemen, can we put everything into the cloud? Is there any limit? You know, is the data classification is a thing, right? There was a long story here in Switzerland that you could not put classified data. This is now gone. So is that the world? Is everything is possible, or would you recommend to people say, look, let's go easy first before you go for or you cannot even go for classified data? But if I just heard 80 to 100 being using or the leveraging public cloud, so there must be no limit then, right?
I don't think there is a limit to what can go up to the cloud, and I don't think that organizations will stop. I think that it does require maturity, and it requires premeditated planning and thinking about it, planning it, architecting it. If you just lift and shift what you had in the on-premise environment into the cloud and hope that it will be secure because AWS will secure it, well, that's going to be disappointing. But if you look at what the world has to offer in cloud security, what the cloud service providers and what other providers have to offer for securing the cloud environments, you'll see that there's much more available than I think there ever was before. And many of the things that are possible in the cloud from a security perspective weren't possible in the old world. So the cloud is also a huge opportunity for security and for organizations to improve their security. And I think that when I look at both of our companies, at Hermetic and at Cyera, what we're doing is really taking security to a whole new level. Well, it wasn't even imaginable that you would have something like these capabilities in the on-premise environment. And it's only possible because of this new world, because that the unified infrastructure, the unified API that unlocks all of the different services in the cloud allows for a much, much better and much more granular level of security than was ever available before. But it requires footwork and it requires courage. If you're going to try the same things you did on premise in the cloud, you will be disappointed.
But are you saying, Yotam, are you then saying that the internal security organization will not be needed anymore because the AWS and whatsoever will bring it? You just need is that a saving opportunity, or is they no, it's even more?
Andreas, I don't know. In the US, they have a statistic they like to quote about how many jobs in cybersecurity are unmanned. How much need there is in cybersecurity expertise that is being unanswered. And I think for us, for the vendors, we try to make the security team's life much easier so they can actually manage and get along with the very few people that they have in compared to what they need. But the people are needed, the expertise is needed, and I don't think it's going anywhere.
But you both mentioned the training question, right? The education question. So, me doing 6 years cybersecurity, right? So I grew up with something completely different from an IT, from a security point of view than you guys, right? And so the old on-prem kind of security approaches, the old style knowledge processes, all that stuff, do they apply for the cloud as well? Have the fundamentals changed, or is it only the level on top with the way we do business, the speed to market and all that stuff, which makes the difference?
I would say some of the fundamentals are the same, but I would say in general, many of the things have changed in the cloud. When you think about it, the development have changed, the way that you develop changed, the way that you deploy changed, the infrastructure changed. So to expect that the security will stay the same, of course, it's probably not the reality. You cannot lift and shift the security to the cloud. I would say the way some of the paradigms that were relevant in the on-prem are not relevant in the cloud. I would say in the on-prem, probably 80% of your security relied on network perimeter. You don't have this in the cloud. You have nothing. You have everything in the cloud, not talking just about SaaS, but also on the infrastructure, on the platform as a service. If you want to access a bucket, there is no network perimeter. Everything is done by identity. Identity is the new perimeter that everyone talks about, this paradigm shift, and many other changes, I would say. taking on-prem solution and moving it to the cloud, or on-prem processes and moving them to the cloud without doing the relevant adjustment, I would say it's a mistake. So it's not that you need to start from the beginning. You need to make sure that you adopt the right paradigm, you adopt the right processes, you change where you need to change. I would say this is in general.
But let's be concrete. Yotam, maybe you just add to it, but what is it, what organizations need to do really to make it work effectively for them? Is it only training? Is it, just what's hands-on? What can someone do? Is that, oh, we go now, or we just moved into the cloud, I haven't done anything internally, people are the same, processes are the same. Any best practices from your side there?
So I couldn't agree with Shai more about the changes that organizations are looking for. And I would even add that it's not only the changes in the technology, in the IT landscape, but also the changes in what people are willing to deal with and what people aren't willing to deal with. When you work with a 23-year-old developer today, they're not willing to go through a year-long process in order to deploy their code. If they have to do that, they'll leave the company. They'll go work for another company. And if you want to retain talent, you have to enable talent. And you have to let that talent operate in the modern ways with agile development, with cloud-native services. And I think that from a security perspective, what organizations have to change about their mentality when they're coming and looking at the cloud is exactly what Shai pointed out. The network perimeter is dead. That is no longer the way to secure the environment. It's not enough. And it's not enough to ask yourselves what network ports are open. You have to focus on what you actually have in those environments. And in my mind, that's represented by the data. And like Shai said, the identity, who can access, what the permissions and entitlements do these services have. This is true for people, and it's true for machine services, user account, service accounts, and services that are accessing the different services and data in the environment. And if you focus on the actual assets that you have in the cloud, your ability to inventory them, figure out what's important, and make sure that it's under the appropriate security controls and policies is much better than it ever was before.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about, identity and access management topic? I started working November 94, right? And one of my first projects was an PKI environment in a pharmaceutical company, right? And at that time, it was sold as, identity and access management will be solved forever, right? And since then, it's still number one everywhere, number two every year. No one has identity access management fully under control. Now we say, oh, identity is the new perimeter. Makes me a little, oh my God, are we going crazy? Are we really doing the right thing there? But because I fully agree with you, right? But did we mature enough that the companies get identity, joiner, mover, leaver, revocations, certificate management, all that stuff? Do they have it under control that well that you can say, look, yep, it's safe, I can trust that?
Mm-hmm. It's a very good question. I would say maybe start by saying that this is the reality. When you think about, I would say, the root cause, I would say, for most of the attacks, again, using Gartner quotes, 99% of breaches will happen because of misconfigurations, or I would say call it customer fault, because the cloud providers have a lot of security in place. And 75% of this misconfiguration will be because of mismanagement of identity, entitlements, access, permission. So think about it, 3/4 of the breaches in the future will happen because of identity risks, I would say, or entitlements risk or permissions risk. So this is the reality. This is the way that the cloud is built, because you cannot use any network parameters like you used in the past, because it's not relevant anymore, because you want to access the data from all around the world. You have remote workforce, you have all the modern world, and even if I would say, especially post-COVID, the way that we work. So this is the reality. So, but I would say on the good side, I would say that of course we have the right partners, the right vendors, the right processes for identity. We need to improve it. We need to make sure that we choose the right solutions, we choose the right processes, we train the people. but this is I'm very optimistic. This is the reality, and we need to make sure that we're working towards this reality.
There was a huge tendency current, especially in the US, but also here in Europe, that all the regulators taking this human cyber risk into the center of their focus, right? And misconfiguration is nothing else than a result of people not doing their job correctly or not being educated, or whatsoever, right? So do you agree that all of a sudden this huge focus that we need to focus on behavior of people, that they are trained, that the old day kind of, I educate someone and then he may do the right thing. We all know it's not working for cyber, right? I know that whatever, eating too much chocolate is not healthy, so I shouldn't do it, but I still do it, right? Because I love it and enjoying it. Are you seeing that this is one of the main trigger points why this human factor risk all of a sudden becomes such a focus point?
I would say that it's completely true, and think about, I would say, specifically in the cloud, mostly I would say the human factor is mostly developers. They are measured on time to market or time to develop, time to deployment. I would say how quickly they develop. They really don't, sometimes I would say in most cases, they really don't care about security. And even if you train them and you educate them, it will be very helpful, but it's not enough. I agree, you need governance, you need policies in place, you need the right tools that will make sure that to enforce these policies and to correct, I would say, these mistakes almost at real time if possible. A big part of what we do with our customers is we show them some of their findings and things that they need to fix in their staging environment or development environment. And then when they move it to production, we fix it before that. So you need to put the right, I would say, guardrails in place in order to support some of the things that you mentioned. Again, changing the human factor and making the human factor like 100% security focus, it's not possible. It's not possible.
That's true. I think you both know that I'm supporting a couple of cyber startup companies, right, as an advisory board or sitting on the boards directly. And I have the feeling at the same time, it's became so much easier to put business into the cloud and to get things up. And, cloud native organizations, they have, easy peasy, works enormously fast. At the same time, when I sit at these board meetings and the people talk about the challenges and all that, I have the feeling it became harder for the organization. Business enablement, ease of use, all cool, much better. But to get the efficiency out and to get it really to a point that an IT leader or a security leader can stand up in front of the board and asking or answering a question, are we safe enough? It became harder for them, or they, I hear much more fluffy, hot air statements than I was hearing 5 years ago. Is that something you agree with, or is this something which we just have to accept, or should I, as a board member, challenge them far more and say, look, not good enough, go back, we need hard facts because that's all there?
I think, Andreas, to your point, it's even a bigger change in the mentality, because I think that not so long ago, when we wanted to secure something, the way to go about it was, first of all, to make it static. First of all, to freeze it in time, to say, this is the state, this is the situation, this is secure. And this is something that organizations, competitive organizations, commercial organizations just can't do any longer. Like, if you freeze something, if you make it static, you're killing the organization, you're killing the business. And that's not a possibility any longer. So like Shai said, we should be looking at guardrails. We should be looking at how we enable developers to continue to make mistakes, to run as fast as they can, to deploy and to get their systems up into the market. But at the same time, we as the security teams, we need to be able to monitor all the changes and all the things that are happening in the environment and be able to catch the mistakes very quickly and fix them before they materialize. And I think that this is the new approach that we're seeing cloud-first organizations adopting. It's not about not making mistakes, and it's not about stopping the business. It's about letting the business run as fast as the cloud allows them, but at the same time, having the tools and the policies and the processes in place to actually continuously monitor all the changes in the environment and alert about anything that's out of policy or should be addressed. And I can give a wonderful example. I'm here at AWS Reinforce in Boston right now. And last night I met a CISO for a bank for dinner, a bank that adopted cloud quite early on. And he told me that a few months ago, one of the developers changed a piece of code that they had in a customer-facing application from HTTP to HTTPS. That's the change the developer made. And suddenly they started collecting cookies. They started collecting cookies of all their customers. And in the privacy policy, they did not tell the customers that they were collecting this information. Long story short, he finds himself sitting in front of 5 lawyers from the FTC with a $10 million lawsuit on his head for collecting new data that he didn't tell the customers he was collecting. And he has to explain to them that this was done by mistake. But the fact that it's been done by mistake is not enough. That's the reality. This is how things happen. It has to be that he's made every effort possible to actually track the changes in the environment, be able to identify this new data that he's collecting, and make sure that it aligns with all of the policies. And that's the big change that a person has to make in the mentality.
That's like you trying to explain the police officer who just stopped you that you didn't see that sign that you're only allowed to go 100, right, where you're going 180. I made a mistake. Doesn't work this way. Yeah, interesting. But let's, because I think the point is super interesting if you look from the attack point of view, the Mitra attack vectors and how these kind of scenarios get attacked. What, from your point of view, and I think that's interesting for both of you, I think, and you may want to start first from a data point of view. What are the things everyone needs to watch out from an attack vector point of view? Some basics. What are the basic things to watch out for?
Shai, do you want to take it?
No,
okay.
maybe do both. Yotam, you maybe from a data point of view, and Shai then from from a more technology infrastructure point of view, because I think it's both very interesting.
So I'll give my perspective from what we're seeing organizations deal with and what's bothering the organizations that we're working with. So I think the first thing we have to understand about the attackers is that they're lazy, right? They're coming to do the least possible in order to achieve their goals. They're an efficient business like we all try to build. And when you think about that approach, you understand that it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be an external attack, in which case the external attack surface is the most important aspect in my mind to manage, because these attackers are going to be looking for these assets that were publicly exposed on the internet, for databases that have a public endpoint. They're going to look for things that they can easily access from the outside. And that's one way to go about it. And the other way to go about it is through what we're calling insider risk, insider threat. But I think sometimes it doesn't even encompass the complexity of this risk vector for the enterprise. And that is the actual employees, the actual identities, accounts in our system. What happens if they're compromised? What can they access? And having that least privilege access mentality, where you're constantly assessing what could happen if accounts are provided, become compromised, become malicious. What could they do in our organization, and how fast would we be able to identify that something is out of line? And I think that these two elements are top of mind for the organizations that we're seeing leverage the cloud, and that's how they're approaching their security efforts.
Mm-hmm. Shai, how do you said?
So I fully agree with you, Tam. I would say on the external surface and also from I would say internal attacks. I would give some examples, and maybe I would add on some on top of that. Let's take a look, I would say, on ransomware, for example. So ransomware is a very trendy, I would say, topic. I would say in the last several years, it's very crucial for organization to be protected against ransomware. I would say ransomware, what we see as of today, I would say it's mostly on the on-prem, I would say, going from computer to computer. And it's the world looks at ransomware as more of a malware problem. We need the antivirus to stop the ransomware, I would say, in general. But when you go to the cloud and think about, I would say, ransom attacks in the cloud or potential ransom attacks in the cloud, when you think about your data, that your data in the cloud doesn't reside on the servers, it actually resides on the platform. And the platform is a service, I would say, on databases and buckets and things like that. You can imagine that it's less, I would say, of malware issue. I would say it's more of, I would say, I call it access issue or identity issue. I would say, for example, some of the things that we discussed. When you think about external surface, like a bucket open to the public, or sometimes there is an identity, an administrator identity we found in some of our, I would say, prospects or customers, critical vulnerabilities of identity that is open to the public. And this identity can encrypt all your data in all your buckets. Or this identity or a secret that is publicly open to everyone. There is, of course, it's a mistake, it's misconfiguration. It's not something that was done on purpose or intentionally, but it's a mistake that someone can delete your key and then you cannot decrypt your data. So you cannot read your data. So effectively it's a ransom attack, I would say. So until now, we haven't seen a lot of, I would say, a lot of ransomware or ransom attacks in the cloud, but as the sensitive data goes more to the cloud, and as we said, all the data, all the sensitive data, including the DoD, including the Department of Defense, I would say, in the United States, are going to the cloud. There is no other way. It's such a competitive disadvantage not to be in the cloud. We'll see more and more and more ransom attacks in the cloud. So some of the attack vectors that we reuse from the on-prem, I would say, are a little bit different in the cloud. So we said misconfigurations, 99% of the challenges will be because of the human factor. 75% of them will be because of access issues and identity and entitlements and permissions issues. A big part of it is external surface. I would say this is like a big part of what we'll see as attack vectors in the cloud. Things that when you think, I would say, again, using Gartner, 1% will happen because of very sophisticated zero-day or vulnerability or things that I would say the state-grade attacks will still happen, but it will be less than 1% of the attacks. 99% of the attack, as Tom said, the attackers are very lazy. They will use whatever open. So the way to be protected is, of course, to understand it, to get visibility, to get to a least privileged state, to have guardrails in place, to check for misconfigurations and mistakes, to have policy enforcers, to change it and remediate it right away, to try to fix it as early as possible. I would say I'm talking from an infrastructure perspective. Sometimes you need to fix it at the code level. A lot of, I would say, of cloud today is infrastructure as code. It's developed in the code. So you can fix it sometimes in the code. So let's fix it in the code. Let's fix it as early as possible. Let's find it as early as possible. I would say all of these, I would say, paradigms that are different than, I would say, in the on-prem are things that you need to focus today. Find the right partner, of course. I would say this is also something that my probably biggest tip for an organization that is migrating to the cloud. Find the right partner that is expert in the cloud and can help you find the right tools, find the right, train the people.
Very interesting. I agree with you. We just got a very interesting question here from the audience. They're saying one of the biggest challenge we face is the shared responsibility model between the cloud provider and us as a customer. Where do you see the customer responsibility ending versus the cloud service provider really owning the space? Is there any guidance on that? Is this completely shared? We're sitting in this boat together, or are there things which you can really separate out?
I think the shared responsibility model is a very, very misleading term. I don't know who's sharing the responsibility with the customers, with the enterprises. And I would not trust anyone to share the security responsibility for my organization with me. And I don't recommend for anyone to trust or to try to share that responsibility with anyone else. I think that the shared responsibility model is one of the cloud providers' greatest marketing terms ever invented, because it creates, in my opinion, a very false sense of mutuality, which does not exist. If your organization is going to get breached, AWS or Azure or GCP, they're not a part of that equation. They're not going to take any responsibility for that. I don't even believe they take responsibility for that, even if it's their fault. But that's a very rare case. They're investing a ton in their security and improving all the time. And I think that when we're seeing the types of attacks and exposures that organizations are causing, the cloud providers will tell you, we gave you all the tools to build it securely, to use it securely, and you made mistakes, and now you're paying for them. So I think the shared responsibility model is a very misleading term, and I see it as the customers, every organization's responsibility to make sure that they're securing their business services and the data that these business services are consuming. And those are the two most important things. Are we continuing to provide the business services to our customers? And are we protecting the data that these business services consume and ingest? And if you do those two things, then I think you're going to be great across all of your different environments. But the cloud providers will not do them for you.
Maybe I'll take a different perspective in answering that. Not saying that I don't agree with Yotam, but just to share with the audience, the shared responsibility model is, of course, a model that was invented by the cloud providers or some analysts that help them, of course, in order to share who's responsible for different elements of security, because your data doesn't reside on your premise, it resides on the cloud. So who's responsible to protect it or to secure it? I would say the model, again, making it very simple, the model says that whoever controls the element is responsible to secure it. For example, physical security is, of course, the responsibility of the cloud provider, because the data is not in your premise, it's in their premise, it's in different places of the world. So, of course, you cannot secure it physically. You cannot secure the computers. You cannot secure, I would say, the ports there. I would say the physical port. I would say this is an example. And in all, I would say in all different, of course, the model is different from infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, because there is a different control, or the different split, I would say, in control. In all cases, the responsibility for the data, securing the data and securing the access, securing the identities, in the responsibility of the customer. The things that usually change, I would say, between the infrastructure, platform, and software as a service is areas that is different. Let's say in infrastructure as a service, you're also responsible for the operating system in the VM, in the virtual machine. So of course you need to secure the operating system. But in platform as a service, you're not responsible. You cannot change, you cannot do it. So of course it's a responsibility of the cloud. Not saying that I don't agree with Yotam, that at the end, we as customers, we as organization, we as security leaders, we need for sure to take responsibility for the things that are in our control, but also to have some more guardrails and policies in place to make sure also things, the other things are secure. But in some cases, it's not in our ability. So I would say if some employee from AWS steals, I would say, the data physically from their, I would say, data center, of course, no one can blame us. Though maybe in terms of the contracts and agreements, I'm not sure who's responsible.
So you both are saying better be safe than sorry, right?
Better be safe than sorry, but let's make sure that at least we understand what the model is, and we understand where we need, I would say, to put most of our guardrails and focus, I would say, that as we mentioned, data, identities, access, things that you control in your organization, the misconfiguration, the configurations of the cloud. Of course, it's your responsibility. You're responsible for it because you control it. It's out of the control of the cloud provider. They cannot eventually control how you configure if you give access to everyone in your organization to all the sensitive data. They cannot.
But it's the same like on-prem, right? If you do the mistake on-prem, you have the same result, right?
Right.
Shai, given that you have to leave in 5-6 minutes, let me ask you one more question, because many organizations follow now the multi-cloud strategy, and because they don't really trust, they're not really sure about it. Is this the right way to go, or are you saying, look, this is just a waste of time and waste of money, energy, because you have everything double, triple, and costs and everywhere? What's from your discussions and from your customers, which you're working with, is this the way to go?
Maybe I will start. We just hopefully we'll release a survey soon. We just finished a survey with customers, over 500 employees and more than, I don't remember, 10 million in revenue, I think. So again, a smaller enterprise and even to the bigger enterprise. I would say 90, probably 95% and more said that they have a multi-cloud strategy. And this is, I would say, not for just for security reasons. I would say this is for business reasons, organizational reasons. Sometimes you need to make sure in terms of cost, there is a difference. Sometimes there is a difference in the capabilities. Not all cloud services are the same. Sometimes you need the analytics to be at Google, and I would say the development to be at AWS or different. Again, not recommending specific clouds to anyone. Sometimes it's organizational issues. You just acquired another company. You are using Azure, and they AWS or Google or Ali or I don't know or any other cloud. So as
all of a sudden it's legacy, right? It comes as legacy.
Becomes legacy, and again you need to support it. As security practitioners, we cannot say no. We are business enablers. We're not disablers. We cannot say no. So though it makes it sometimes more complicated to control and to understand and have knowledge and expertise in all clouds, this is our responsibility. We cannot say no. So we need to make sure that it works. We need to find the right partner, the right tools, the support, they give you single pane of glass and things like that that will help you, I would say, manage it or deal with it in the right way.
Tam, do you agree?
I agree. And I think that one of the reasons that we chose to focus on the data layer is because data is always the customer's responsibility in all of the different clouds and in all of the different cloud operating models as well. SaaS, PaaS, infrastructure as a service, and even function as a service that is coming up now, serverless. And I think that when organizations are looking for approaches to secure their cloud environments, you have to think wide and you have to think long. You have to think in both of those dimensions. Even if today, for a time, you only have one cloud provider, I think that's a very, very temporary situation. If the business is moving forward, if the business is growing, then you will find yourself owning more than one cloud very, very, very soon. And it's something that I've actually seen happening with our customers. Some customers I spoke with in 2021 told me, oh, we don't have any sensitive data in the cloud yet. We're not there yet. And then in 2022, we meet again and they tell us, we made 2 acquisitions. We now have Azure, AWS, and GCP, and a ton of sensitive data that we didn't even collect, so we don't know what's there. So it's changing very rapidly.
Yeah, I agree. So given that Shai needs to leave soon, just can I ask you both for any last advice? What should, the main points, what should people focus on, the 3 things to keep in mind when you do to check at their end?
I think from my perspective, I would focus even on one. And that one thing would be to do, just to be proactive and take action regarding your cloud security. Cloud is a reality that is coming. There's no way to hinder it. And I think that every organization needs to adopt this mentality and to take a very proactive stance about securing these environments and securing these new and upcoming systems. And we're seeing that organizations that lean forward have tremendous success. They improve their security and they improve their business. But if you try to, like they say, bury your head in the sand and wait, it's not going to pass. It's here to stay and it's going to happen. And it will be much better for you personally and for your organization to look it in the eye and be active about taking care of it.
Shai, what are your final 1, 2, 3 things?
Okay, I would start by saying that cloud is a huge opportunity. It's not just a huge opportunity for the business, it's also a huge opportunity for security. Again, we spoke about some challenges, but in general, the potential of the cloud to become much more secure than the on-prem is there. It's up to us. The opportunity to develop quicker solutions, to have more automation, everything is in the same API in the same place. So some consolidations that were hard on the on-prem. Again, many things that are the cloud are opportunity also for security, I would say in general. I would join, I would say, Yotam, and say that you need to find or to decide on your roadmap. Again, understand where you are. We have a maturity model, security maturity model for the cloud. You can use ours, you can use others. Understand where you are in terms of maturity and decide what's the next steps. Define your roadmap and execute. That's the way to go. Find the right partner, find the right tools, and execute.
Sounds to me like great advice and a great note to end on, really. Thank you very much, both, for the valuable insight. I know you have to leave, otherwise you're missing your meeting. So therefore, thanks a lot. We as Cyberweight have put together a document where there are 6 areas of concern about public cloud security, and Andy and the team have put it in a white paper. So if you're interested, everyone reach out. There's this email address, hi@cyberweight.com. You can do it via LinkedIn. You can do it whatever, you all know all the channels which we have. And then the only thing which left to say is thank you very much for everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. We will do the recording. We make it now nice and shiny, make it available on the webpage, and everyone who wants to use it, tell us. You can always reach out back to us. And Andy just told me as well that the registration for the next podcast is also, the CISO Talk podcast is already open. There we will talk, and I think this is very close to the heart of what we just talked about third-party vendor risk, because cloud has a lot of third-party vendor risk dependencies. Everyone who knows me knows how close that topic is to my heart. And so therefore, it's again on the LinkedIn page of us, it's on the web page of ours, and it's also, if you want to have it, via hi@cyberweight.com. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening in, and for this one question was really excellent. I really liked it. And gentlemen, all the best. Have a wonderful remaining day. And thanks again. We will follow up afterwards. Huh? Thank you very much.
Andreas.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Bye-bye.